principles that made the American experiment what it is.
Welcome to the
I've
Swatches
often quoted
live
one of the
stream.
late
I'm
remarks
Clint.
of Top
This
Bill.
is Diana.
Hi.
He said,
And if you are interested in
With a
seeing
revolution,
some portfolio
as with a
reviews and
novel,
some paintovers, we've
the
got a
hard
lot
part
of
to
it
invent
in this episode.
is the ending. And I often put
So,
it, your founders
again,
wrote
welcome to the
a
live stream.
brilliant first chapter.
If you guys
With the
would
dark
let us
spots.
know just in the
There'll be
chat
many
that
Glorious
the
chapters
audio
since
sounds
then.
good,
Just
video,
think
all
of
that's
the
good.
greatest generation. But there's
And I
no
wanna
question that
adjust
if you
our
look at the
camera
founding
here because
principles
we
of
are
this
under the
country
logo.
and where
Hang on,
those
let's move
principles
over to
are
this
today,
side.
and especially the notion of freedom
might work a little
and
better.
sustainable freedom,
Okay, so we
This
are going to be
generation
reviewing
will write one of the
some
most significant
submitted
chapters
portfolios
of all.
from the community.
Oh, wait.
I believe there's hardly
There's-
any problems
you can
today
hear a
that couldn't be
bit of
helped
sound from-
enormously by a return to many of
Is there something wrong?
Hang on. Oh, for some reason, sorry. YouTube started playing a video in the background. I
Thanks.
don't know why.
Thanks, YouTube. Is it?
Okay,
Okay.
that should be good. Sorry about that. Let me just take it from the top. Welcome to the Swatches live stream. I'm Clint, and this is Diana.
Hi.
We are professional illustrators and art instructors, and we're going to be looking at your guys' submitted portfolios and give some feedback on those. And we have a number of paintovers that have already been prepped. So hang around, and we're going to be looking at those throughout the live stream. You guys are welcome to put in any questions into the chat. We'll try to keep an eye on it and answer that as we go. The reviews are free. Anyone is welcome to submit.
Mm-hmm.
If you're interested in doing that, just go to the Swatches Discord. Just go to swatchesdiscord.com. It'll send you to the correct Discord. You will need to join the server in order to access the room. And you want to go to the video critique submission, and you can just post it right there.
You might have to make a post first, kind of
Yeah.
introducing yourself. I think it's because of the bots, so you have
Yes.
you have to just make a quick post introducing yourself, saying hi, I'm so and so, and then you can go ahead and post your portfolio.
All right, we're going to be taking a look at 6 different portfolios. Now, if you've not joined us before, we know just kind of how we're approaching these. First, we're going to be looking at any particular questions that these submitters send us, and we want to try to answer those. And we want to look at the portfolio as a whole. Kyle's going to be the first one that we look at here. Then we want to move into talking about some of the individual things to improve in the images. A lot of times what you see in reviews is people either just a lot of times what they do is start focusing on like nitty-gritty adjustments, where really what you have to do is start by looking at the full portfolio and say, well, how is this reading on a whole? Because that's really how an art director is going to look at that work and determine whether the overall quality is there. So let's take a look at Kyle's. Let me bring this up.
Kyle here today? Kyle, are you watching? Let us know. And then we can answer any questions that you may have specifically.
Okay, so Kyle has been picking up some projects for some smaller clients and TTRPG stuff, wanting to work towards an MTG, D&D sort of client or level. Spoke with Kate Irwin, who was an art director with Wizards of the Coast, with Magic primarily.
No, she's D&D.
Oh, she's D&D now. Okay. And felt that she... Okay. Told you that you're at the door, but there's need for more consistency. There's some wobbly anatomy. Just want some general feedback of how to improve. Okay. So this is Kyle's art station. The subject matter is good. That's one of the first things that we see, is that you are obviously sticking to the fantasy illustration genre and doing both individual characters, scenes, and props. That's a fine lineup. And from here, then, the question is quality. And we talk about this in a lot of the classes, and recently the released portfolio and career kit, we talk about this at some extent, that image selection is very important. If you have too broad of a selection or too obscure of subject matter, you're not going to find a client for it. So on these, I would say that it's really an issue of just raising the quality level, because the general subject matter is fine.
Mm-hmm.
So that's when we then need to start moving in and looking at some individual stuff. Now, even from the outset, one of the things that I see, even at this level, and I'm going to turn my screen up a little bit here. Is that we're getting a lot of flat images. And that is coming through with figures that are posed very straight to camera, and things are laid out in a very side-to-side manner. So we're seeing that like on this, and this. Now this makes sense. A lot of times standing characters just face towards camera. That's fine. But for a lot of these scenes, you really need more twist to the body. You need some sort of turn or twist or angle, and the environment needs to be more angled as well. Okay.
So Kyle is here, by the way.
Okay. Let me move that over so I can
I'm
actually
watching
see
the chat over here, so I can tell you if there's a question.
Okay, we're going to hop into Photoshop in a minute and take a look at some suggestions on some other pieces, but we just do a quick breakdown here first. So you made this in Winona Nelson's mentorship. She's a high-level illustrator. And a standout here is that everything was given attention. Everything is rendered. There's nothing that's fuzzy or left at a low level. Now, that said, I am confused as a viewer the nature of the scene, and I would have some issues with this if I was the art director working on it, because of the way that the whole thing is kind of laid out and what it's supposed to be conveying. So I like a lot of the render. It's very clean and it feels intentional, but I don't think the storytelling and the composition is there yet. I don't know what process that you went through to create this, but it seems like there was a fair amount of time put into the character design, color variations, where I feel like more time would have been better used composing the scene and figuring out how to convey whatever the story is. I'm going to be nitpicky on that because that's like your most finished piece. That is your most newest piece.
More recent.
Most recent. Okay. Big scene here. Let's just open these in Photoshop and we'll go from there. Okay. Got this. Where's the other one we've got? I've got a couple of Photoshop files where I pulled together some references and put in with them. Yeah, okay. All right. Again, this is another one. A lot of time has been put into this, and that's great to see. You've actually got a lot of detail and rendering going on these characters, but the issue here again is one of composing of a scene. I'm going to suggest going forwards that more time be spent working on composing scenes and not necessarily doing finished scenes. Spend more time like just doing studies of composition. So for this, the scene is completely understandable as it is. I get what's going on, but it's not a dynamic way of conveying a dynamic scene. And that is because everything is pretty much laid out in a left to right orientation. Everything's sideways. Basically, the dragon is just sideways. This guy's sideways, sideways, sideways. There's nothing aligned in a z-axis. Nothing goes forwards or back in the image. We're not seeing this from the dragon's point of view. We're not seeing this from the adventurer's point of view. So to get more out of the scene, we need to be more critical about where we're placing the camera to augment that.
Yeah, I mean, with this, okay, when you have a scene like this where there's a lot of elements, there's a lot of characters, there's something really big like this dragon, there's like a big battle or something, and it takes place in a big place, you kind of, the instinct is to go for a high angle so that you can fit everything, so you're looking down on it so that you can fit everything in the frame. When you do this, it's a bit harder to get energy out of it.
Yeah.
Because things tend to flatten out when you're looking down on all of them. So normally what you'll see in a lot of pieces is that they bring the camera down to a more eye level or low angle so that you get more plane separation. So you get things in the foreground. You can't really get that as much on a high angle shot or an overhead shot. So on a low angle, you can have more of those things in the foreground, midground, background, and your big element. And you can kind of organize your values more easily. So that's kind of what we're missing here is we don't have a clear commitment to the camera angle or camera placement. And we've got a, like Clint said, side by side, kind of flattens out all the planes.
So I've got a couple of references here. And Grizz and Norm, I came across this the other day on Pinterest. And this is basically doing the same topic. When you're about to choose a type of shot, ask yourself how you want the audience to feel about that shot. What is appropriate? Is it dynamic? Is it flat? Flat is great for just conveying clearly what is in the scene and what is taking place, but it doesn't evoke any kind of energy to it. Now, this is fine to sketch out in order to just figure out where things are arranged in relation to each other. It's kind of like drawing a orthogonal view of the scene. But then you go, okay, well, that doesn't feel as dynamic as this to convey the guy is running forwards very quickly. So here we're putting the camera angle, low, just like Diana was talking about. You put it lower and you put it closer, and then we get that energy. Same thing. Guy just sitting there at the computer. Very straightforward. I get what's happening. But this is more interesting. There are things going forwards and backwards in the scene.
You'll notice that on many, many magic cards that they're low angle shots like that with like diagonals or 3/4 views.
Yeah.
And like stacked, clearly separated planes.
Here is a piece by another artist that basically does the same sort of thing. You could sub this out for your dragon. You got all of your people right here. You even have that person jumping in the air to go attack them. But you notice what they did. They put the camera in a first-person situation. They put the camera as if it was one of the people in the group. What we've done here is we've made the camera third person. We've pulled out of the action and we're like just a drone hovering around watching it. It's not as dynamic. Here's another one. So we see here, again, everything is at a bit of an angle. Everything is going forwards and backwards in the scene, and it's at a bit of a tilt, right? Going away from us that way. But this would be the big suggestion on this piece. We got a lot of stuff to go through, so I'm going to just keep moving. Okay. We see the same thing again with this one. It's an ambush, but what's happening? Everything is completely side to side, just like the last piece.
I do want to praise your character design on this one, though.
Yep.
I like the costume a lot. I think there's tons of cool, fun things happening with the costume.
Mm-hmm.
And even the designs on the little, I don't know what these are, goblins, these creatures. They have fun designs too, these big ponytails and yeah.
So for this, really try to start finding arrangements that have things coming forwards and back. It's just that this guy, both shoulders and hips completely towards camera. Same thing for this guy, same thing for this guy, and it just leads everything to having this superposed kind of fake feel to it.
If we tilted the camera like it wants to be, the horizon line is low, so it's like it wants to be a low angle shot, but we're not really looking up at him. So if you wanted to make him look heroic, you know, or more powerful, we would have, and that's what you see on many Magic cards, like that low angle, you know, camera looking up shot. And that would really help a lot.
All of this works together to tell me that you are rushing through the first half of the painting process. That you're doing probably one, maybe two. I doubt you're really doing that many composition studies or pose variations, and then just starting to commit to the painting. Now, I did see some of the other sketches of this scene that you did with this archer, and I have to say that I think some of these other ones were more dynamic. Where is that piece? And I don't know if you ended up choosing this one
Over there.
for what reason. Maybe you just felt more comfortable that you could pull this one off. But several of these have more, like,
Yeah, that's the
even
upshot.
the earlier version, it had more perspective to it, which made it more dynamic. And these guys felt like they were encroaching on him because they're coming up around him. But here we've lost that. Here everything's just now flat. We're seeing him at a flat level. So if we want to do like an ambush, like here's another piece from someone else, and what you want to do is create a ring. You want to have basically all of the enemies exist in a ring around the character. Same thing on this one. Now this was created for a book cover and there would be a split there, but you can see how everything is ranged in a circle around the character. That helps to convey the idea of an ambush. Over here, it just feels like the guy could just run away towards camera because there's nobody over here, right? And there's a lot of space behind him where there doesn't seem to be anybody.
There's also a question of scale with those enemies. I'm not quite sure how big they're supposed to be in relation to him or to the environment. Like, how big are these trees or plants? So there's kind of a disconnect. I can't tell if they're meant to be really far away or if they're just small and he's really big.
Yeah, that's why we have to have something in the planes going from foreground to midground to background, and there's some overlap so that we can have equate the size of one thing to another thing as it goes back. Okay, we've got this one and this one. Let's take a look at Chandra. For anybody that doesn't know, this is the character Chandra Nalar, I believe is her last name, from Magic the Gathering. I've illustrated this character before, and this is obviously fan art. So the thing with fan art is, if you're going to do it, it has to be at least as good, if not better, than the original. Because people will automatically compare it to the official art. And if it's not as good, that's going to be detrimental to you.
That's the danger with doing characters and like particularly this type of image where this is an image that's been done several times before, like her with the fire swirling, like it's done a bunch of times. So people are really familiar with this image and kind of what it's supposed to, or what it usually looks like.
Yeah.
And when you put yourself in that position of picking a character in a certain kind of image that's well known, you're automatically going to be compared to those images just immediately, and you put yourself in that position where you're going up against these other pieces instantly, and it might not be to your advantage.
So this one is a piece by Chris Ron. It's an official Chandra piece. When I see this, I already have this that I'm comparing it to in my head, and this one's better. So it makes me feel like it's not helping you the way that you would hope that it would in your portfolio. Same way, here's another piece of Chandra. This one just is more dynamic. It's more expertly rendered. I'm not saying that it's not a good thing to practice or that fan art is always bad. That's not the case.
Yours is not bad, by the way.
No, it's not.
Yours is very, very good. It's just that, again, you've chosen an opponent that is really hard to match, right?
And here's another piece, okay? This was a fan art. This is not an official Magic piece. And this is the level that they got it to. Yours isn't there yet. But that is, if you want to say, who are you kind of competing against with this image, in which that's what everyone does with their portfolio. Your portfolio is what you're putting into the game to compete against somebody. So that is the clearest competition for this image. And this is a piece that person did in order to get work with Magic.
And they did.
And they did. Yeah. Shortly after that, they started doing official work with Magic. So I just want to make that point. Okay.
It would be, I guess the point is, it would be more advantageous to avoid direct comparisons one-to-one with established characters until you are able to hit that level.
Yeah.
Because until you are, they hurt you more than they help you. Even if you get lots of likes and attention on social media because it's a known character, it's not going to land with the target, your actual intended target.
Who was that?
I forget the name of this person, this artist.
I don't remember.
But this person does a lot of Magic cards and Rune Terror cards.
Yeah, you could probably go to ArtStation and just put
pieces.
in Chandra. You'll probably find it.
Yeah, I forget the name of the artist.
Yeah. Okay, so here's another piece, fantasy piece, and this does have a lot going for it, but it does also have some issues that would turn off AAA clients. So here, again, we're getting in another situation where everything is pretty much as flat as it can be. All the characters are just flat to the camera. The main character is not posed in a way that gets any dimensionality out of it. And we didn't do this. We did a little paint over on this, but I didn't do this on the paint over. I just wanted to point it out, though, is that for a character like this, you really need to have like the upper body turned one way, and then the lower body kind of turned the other way. And it would be like having this leg kind of up, and then that one extended, and then the chest kind of going that direction. And it's just a natural twist to the body that just makes it more interesting than static up and down. Okay, that would be one thing that would immediately get more out of that image. Dinah did most of this, a little paint over, but it'd be getting at something in this territory. Right now, a lot of this is just washed out, and the character design can be developed as well. So talk to us a little bit about the character change there.
Okay, so we've got kind of different mixed messages in the design. If we go back to the original, we've got a face and hair that's very young and kind of just normal pretty girl. Mm-hmm. And then we've got a costume that is kind of odd. It's got some bones, that's cool, but the actual cloth inside is just basically a tube. There's no stitches, there's no cuts or any pieces cut in there. It doesn't look like a real garment. So I just wanted to try to make the look established in the face and the costume go more together. And from a character like this, you could do like a very elaborate bone costume, but I didn't know how much it was really necessary to complicate it. So just kind of splitting it in pieces and letting us see, because the face is very pretty, very sexy, right? The head and the hair. And then the rest of the costume is a little bit, I don't know, even conservative. Yeah. Very covered up. And so let's have a little bit more. We can keep some of those pieces, but have a more appealing design. It felt like you wanted to make her appealing, but you didn't go all the way. So let's just do that. Can you turn that back on? And in order to get that kind of backlit look, we kind of need to darken the sky, and we need the character to be in shadow, so that we can have that. So that's what I did, was just taking some cues off of this piece. And there are a ton of MTG pieces that kind of follow this formula.
This is fairly common formula, I believe. What's his name? Karin and Yanner uses this lighting a fair amount. You could look up him, Karin and Yanner. And we need a reference like that to help direct the lighting and the values in the scene. Because what we're getting here is it's too washed out. We can't get any edge light because the background is already too light. It's as bright as the edge light. So we got to be able to take it down a notch so that we can get some glow on it. And then we've got to find some ways to like de-emphasize some of the other stuff and get more focus on her.
They're a lot bigger than her, right? Yeah. So they kind of become attention magnets. So we're trying to tone them down, bring them more into a range that we don't want it to melt into the background, but to not be as contrasty as her. So let her have more areas of contrast. Just a pointer for anybody doing magic effects, glowing eyes. Yeah, the background stuff around it has to be darker. It's not going to work.
Yeah, because you notice how sort of low power and low impact this purple flame is. That's a really cool aspect of the character, but you don't even really notice it that much until you can give it something to contrast against, and then you get that pop of purple there, and it really has more impact. Okay, Kyle, we just threw a lot of stuff at you. You were really showing some nice skill. You're taking on good subject matter. And I feel like you're exactly where you're dealing with exactly what is normal for someone who is stepping up to do the kinds of scenes that you're doing. And the things that we're bringing up is very common. Everyone has to learn how to make these little adjustments. Lighting is the next thing that you're learning now that you're putting together scenes. And the same thing with posing and kind of the visual narrative of or setting up the scene. Those take a lot of practice to do. They took a lot of observation and doing a lot of studies. You will need to do not as much the more you've done it. Once you've done 20 pieces where you've gone through all the steps, you'll be able to back off of it a little bit. But you've got to make sure that you're putting plenty of time into that initially, because that's something that's going to cap your image no matter how good the render is. going forwards.
I want to mention one little strategic pointer for Kyle and anybody who's thinking of doing like an MTG fan art. Because I did this when I was starting out trying to get more serious about doing fantasy scenes. And the best characters, if you want to do a fan art of a character for like Magic or whatever property, pick a character that hasn't been remade for a while.
Mm-hmm.
So like the only versions of it are not very good. They're old versions. Yeah. So I did that with, I forget the name of the character now. I did that with a character, a Magic character a while back, and she hadn't been painted by any of these new recent artists. The last painting of her was like 20 years ago or 25 years ago. So it wasn't very realistic. And so that's the one I did the fan art, and I got a lot of attention, a lot of love from that. Now someone has gone ahead and done it like way better, Billy Christian or somebody, I don't know, or his wife. But in those days, like 10 years ago, mine was the best one because that character hadn't been painted in a more realistic style for a long time. So just think about that. Maybe not Chandra because she's being done all the time, like super high level, but maybe another MTG character that's more obscure that hasn't been remade for a long time.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let's move on to the next one, and that is Wilson. But let me open the message they had here. Okay. Name is Wilson. Have been a professional illustrator, concept artist for about 7 years. Worked on a couple of cool double and AAA projects, but mainly doing vectors and mobile game stuff. It pays the bills. Yes, for anybody who doesn't realize, there is a heck of a lot of money in mobile games. And if you want to actually make a living doing illustration, that's a very valid industry to look at.
Yep.
My reality is that I want to jump into fantasy horror art or creature design. I had a couple of contracts from big companies, been told my portfolio is good, but doesn't make the cut. Okay.
Oh, Wilson's here. Hi, Wilson.
Hey, Wilson. Yeah, if we're reviewing your stuff and you have a quick question or need a clarification, feel free to put that in the chat.
I also want to mention to people like Kyle, Wilson, anybody we review today or anybody watching this, if you get your review and then you say, man, I feel like I want more time or I want to talk privately to you guys about my portfolio, just go on the website and book a consultation, a private one-on-one. We'll talk directly. And right now it's only open for booking with me, although if Clint is free at the time, there's a probability that he can join with any opinions and feedback in my sessions. So feel free to do that if you want to know what the next step is, or you need some more time, more direction from us. You can do that.
Yep. And I don't normally say this, but hey, if you enjoy these live streams, please leave a like.
Oh, right. So click the like button. Okay. We're not like those people who are always like, hey, like and subscribe or whatever, but it helps the algorithm, apparently.
Okay, so Wilson, we're primarily just going to be looking at your illustration work since you said that you're wanting to move into that. I'm not really going to be looking at your vector art, sketches, and other stuff since this is where you're trying to go. The subject matter, I'll go ahead and let you know this. You probably already do, but for anybody that is interested in more horror illustration, there are clients out there for that. There's obviously properties out there based on that, but they are small compared to a lot of other subject matter.
It's more limited.
Yes, it's more niche. And I would recommend not putting all of, what do you say? I don't put all my eggs in that basket. All right. Offer horror and creatures along with something else that's a little more mainstream. Just to make sure that you can keep the bills. You can keep enough.
Well, you can keep
going.
the bills. You're going to keep the bills paid.
Yeah. No, the bills will keep coming. Yeah, they always do. So, right now, if I was judging this, it's too varied. We've got aliens, we've got insect people, we've got demons, we've got standalone characters, you got mutants, we've got robots, we've got several different styles going on here. We've got full scenes, and then we've got kind of a mystery thing going on over here. I think this is probably your most marketable piece so far. The other ones, I'm not sure how much you're going to get out of some of these others. So
I think it's important to pick a focus
Yeah.
in terms of the illustration. And also doing some briefs that are good for your portfolio.
yes. Now, rendering wise, just looking at this, it doesn't hit me as AAA level for this subject matter. And a lot of that is due to the handling of the values, the form, and the lighting. Like on this one, we're just getting full saturation with everything. Everything's just dialed up to 100% saturation, and things are starting to kind of get washed out because there's nowhere left to go but just like white and black once you go there. So we need to find some references that get the sort of quality and style that you're aiming for. For instance, this one, there is no control of the values to the planes of the image. And this makes the whole thing overly busy, where the background has just the same amount of black level, white level, and saturation as the foreground does. And that just visually makes everything just kind of run together. Everything has hard edges. Everything has a white highlight. Everything has a black shadow. Where we need to be more discerning than that, bring in some subtlety with value control, limiting the values as they go back, focusing the light only on the areas that are like the real focal points. Okay, we have some pieces and some references that we pulled up. Let me grab those. Okay. Take a look at that one in a minute. So like this, demon character, a lot of properties need demon characters, okay. But before we start to rendering it, we need to figure out how to make the guy more interesting and what kind of demon vibe are we going for. Right now, he's not really powerful and imposing. And that's one way you could go. Or you could go like kind of skeletal and thin and kind of devilish, you know, that sort of thing. But he's not really that either. He basically just has a really fit, normal body.
He might have too many abs, I'm not sure.
And with extra spikes. And this is another one where, same thing we talked about on the other piece, people have an idea of what they expect for a character like this that is being fully rendered. Maybe it's something like this, right? If I think of an imposing
Big devil guy.
yeah, it's going to be like this. In which case, pretty much everything about this is this, but one step more. It's red skin, but offset by the fact that some of them become scaly and it has black bony areas.
It's kind of playing off of that idea of like lava and then the hard rock, right? So they're using those colors to kind of evoke that hot aspect to it. The face is more designed too. You have it's not just a big red face, right? There's different planes, the proportions. We got the pointy, you know, bone or horn bits coming out, different sizes of horns. You got the big horns, they really look like horns. Right? They've got that surface texture and the perspective. So this is kind of what an expectation is of a devil guy like this. Not to say it has to be like there's several different types. There are many different types, but it has to go beyond just red guy.
So it'd be something like this. Again, if you're wanting a imposing big demon character, then we've got to bulk him out. We've got super thick neck. The shoulders practically go up to the top of the head. And we're breaking up that red so it's not just the same red everywhere. For this guy, it was, turning to this sort of blackened stuff. Over here, he's got like a paler torso in the middle. And then he's got like some of the black stuff over
it's
here.
More dragon inspired.
Yeah. Or you could go something like this. He's leaner. He has closer to the body type that you've got. He even has some of the same similar inspiration of patterns on the chest. But this is a notch above. It's more interesting. It has more subtlety to it. The wings give him a different presence. The horns give him a bigger presence. There's value separation and color separation between different areas of it, right? So more time in the character design to figure out what is the unique kind of perspective. This is average. This is like an average demon character. What are you going to do to make him more unique?
More cool.
Yep.
Just think, how could I make this just badass? How can I make it cool? And so we always have to develop it one step, two steps further in every aspect. In the anatomy, in the horns, in the face, in the pose, in the tail. Yeah.
Yep. This goes for everyone. We actually saw this a couple of times, different people. One of the ways to quickly make a character feel weak is to tuck their elbow close to their body. You're doing this. All right? That is not a strong position. Strong position is you're expanding your body out. Right?
Taking up more space.
Look at this. This guy's elbow is not against his torso. It's out here.
And the other one isn't either.
Even that arm, holding the sword is off from the body. So we need to get his elbow, and three-dimensionally, we need to shift it out here so that it's out like that. And he can still be holding the thing, but it's not tucked in.
There's some things to think about.
Yeah. Okay, on this one, I just wanted to show some examples here. Another thing that we saw, we didn't go to the website to look at it, a lot of the line work is quite good. There was a sketch of the scene. Let's pull this up.
No, Wilson's drawings are good.
Yeah, there's some good stuff here. I don't really have an issue with the drawing itself, but the handling of the values and the colors are just getting kind of overboard. So, like, this is a similar scene from Hearthstone, and we can see that it's still very colorful. There's great separation between everything, but it's just not that everything is as colorful as the flank.
And not every area or every plane has the same value range.
Yeah.
Right? So the background, the less important stuff, the values are much more compressed.
Yep. So we have that. Even this, I felt like had a similar kind of like warm underlighting, bright top lights, super colorful. And this is something else that would help your character to stand out, is if there was an opposing color behind her. So we've got her underlit with a warm light, and she has a red dress, and she has a red hair, and she has a red wall behind her. At that point, nothing has anything different to contrast against. So that would be helpful. Or if you wanted to approach it like using more of the light from the fire itself. Right? But that has to mean that you put her a little more in shadow. Maybe there's a cooler top light on her. Then you have that warm light.
Well, it would
like
make sense.
She's
She's leaning over.
Yeah.
So her face should be in shadow, and you could just get a bit of that cooking light.
And you see what nice forms you can get out of that. Very nice and volumetric. You get that warm versus cool dynamic, which works so well. And you can just apply that over here. Okay. Let me move that out of the way. Okay. Yep. On this one, this is one that I feel like has a lot of potential to move up, utilizing lighting and value adjustments. The overall scene, I think, is reading quite well.
Yeah, I like it. I like the vibe and the story.
Yeah. The posing here is also working, where she's turning to look over her shoulder and cutting her eyes back. You know she just heard something.
That's nice.
Yeah. And she seems wary. And there's just some small stuff, just like ugly mounted fish, various little designs that are subtle on the wallpaper, stormy scenes right in the background, and then just this giant mall back here in the background. That all works together really well to give some creepy fisherman house location. But we probably need to take some inspiration from something like this, because here we're getting a lot of a washout from the lighting. One of the mistakes here is that the candle is being treated as being far more powerful than it really is. Now, the goal isn't necessarily 100% authenticity with reality, but it doesn't feel right that one candle flame is literally making her skin so bright that it's white.
It's like a spotlight.
Yeah.
Almost.
And that it's creating like all of these clear cast shadows on a background subject, right? So I'm going to say let's tone that down and let's try to go for a little more nuance. So like here, we're not getting a washout on everything from this one lamp. Same thing here. I think this is a really good one for the way that they kind of have a warm-cool balance. It's clear he's being lit by it, but he's not being washed out by it. And, yeah, I had that one too. Thought that was, just similar vibe there of people like investigating stuff. So, here, looking at a change, something like that. We're just trying to get more balance on the values, get her to stand out more. We're just letting a little more shadow fall on that background, just treating it like there's some sort of filtering moonlight up here, catching the top of some of this
skylight or something.
Yeah. Yeah, you got that. We're just getting some glow from the fireplace. And what's that going to do? That's going to make her be the thing that has the highest contrast, the highest amount of saturation, and the highest amount of sharp edges. Then everything else is going to be secondary to that. And we also now get the feeling like the candle is barely enough to really illuminate where she is. And we're moving away, like we're treating this as a silhouette. We're moving away from this being so brightly lit to it's being backlit really by this fire. So this is a great thing to do, is have some areas that are clearly lit with full form rendering, and other areas are more silhouetted, and you get a little flatter tone there. And what that's going to do is just encourage the eye to go to the areas that are more fully developed.
Just de-emphasizing the things that you don't want people to spend a lot of time looking at.
Now, the expression here is great. I really like what you got going on. The cutting the eyes back. The sort of quiver, sort of upturn to that lower lip is nice. We just want to watch how we are lighting that. Try to get a little more skin tone back in there. And if we do have that secondary light, then we want to infuse a little of that on the shadow side as well. Okay. So that sort of approach and control of the values, I think could really elevate your work going forwards. And I would suggest either trying to do a whole theme based on this whole set of images. Again, we're going to recommend working from briefs. And with the kit, everybody can find the kit on the website. We've got a project called Cthulhu, which is a mix of classic Clue game with a Cthulhu vibe to it. And there's a whole set of briefs that are right in line with this sort of image.
I think there's also some for just adventure.
Yep.
Adventure type images. So you might want to take a look at that. I just want to warn everybody again that the kit is included when you buy a class.
Yes.
Okay, so if you're planning on buying a class like next week, maybe wait until then. Don't buy the kit right now, because then you're going to get it with the class. So just be aware of that. If you want the kit and a class, just buy the class and you'll get the kit. If you don't want a class, then go ahead and get the kit.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Let's see that. So that would be my suggestion. Try to make a new series of images. Keep those sort of edits in mind. A lot of focus on value control. Make sure that you always have a lighting and value reference that you're basing it on. Usually it's best if you have one that's photographic, that's like very real, obviously, and then one that is an art piece where somebody has interpreted that in an artistic way, and base yours on that set. Okay, gotta keep going. We've got Ricardo.
Ricardo is next.
And I don't think I saved Ricardo's message. Let me take a look here.
Gotta go down over here. Yeah.
Looking for more in-depth review on your behalf if possible. My interest is concept art, particularly characters. Okay. I'll close the ones we looked at there.
Yeah.
Okay. So, Ricardo. First thing, not a lot of work here. So there's a limited amount of things that we can review. I assume that you're just starting in on the idea of doing character design.
Mm-hmm. He might be, I don't know if Ricardo's still in school or a student. I'm not sure. But we can only obviously, review the work that's here.
Yeah. So with this, we're going to just note what we can from the pieces that you have. Line work is good. Deliberate, clean line work, very important, very useful and valuable in character concept design.
We like it.
Doing turnarounds, also a plus. Keep doing that. This is a good approach so far. All right, so these are all good to see. 3D skills, ZBrush, that's an asset. I would include that in a portfolio if I were to send it to somebody to let them know that I can do 3D. Mm-hmm. But it has a more limited usefulness as a character concept designer.
It is very useful for making props for your character.
Yes.
I think that if you utilized some of your 3D skills to kind of add on some of those things to your characters and say, like, look, I can make, a gun or something, or a weapon for my character, or, his chair where he sits, or whatever. That could be a useful thing to showcase in addition to the character designs.
No. Let me pull out for just a second. With a portfolio, it's better to start with a more narrow focus. Specialize in something. That being the case, I would suggest turning off the 3D stuff. Turning off like this portrait thing. All right. You want to lead with the thing you're about. Eventually, once you get enough images, this probably needs to be a lineup of different character designs, full body character designs, upper body, that sort of thing, and not a 3D model with textures added to it. This muddies the water about what you do. Same thing with a rock. Again, 3D skills are good, but we need to put it in the context of how it applies to character design, prop design for those characters. Like, can you design a backpack, do a 3D model of a unique backpack or hat or what armor, whatever it is for the character. This is where it's at. All right. This sort of lineup. Now, less so with this just because of his pose. This would be useful if you're mainly just showing off his assets.
It would be useful if we had the front of him too.
Yeah.
Right? So we have the back and the front.
This is the best thing in your portfolio right here. And we want to see pages and pages along this line. All right? This is not a perfect, like, A pose. The guy has a natural stance to him. And even his head pose kind of tells you a little bit about his character. This is good, all right? And you're giving me variations that are all in the same group, but they're not just color variations of each other.
They're actually different designs, and that's a good thing. So you basically need a whole portfolio of stuff like this.
I don't think I pulled off. Let me open this. So for this, I'm going to suggest the work by Oscar Bagalini. I'm actually going to I think I have it still open in a tab here. Nope, that's the other person, this one.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, I don't know this person. They are a student or graduate from New Edge School. Okay. And I just want to mention them because this is essentially what you are doing. It's this sort of character. Use this as the template of how you should do it and the quality that you should be aiming at. I would straight up just copy it as to like...
the layout.
Yeah, the general layout and the kind of images you need.
Yeah.
So a really high level finished version, a back view that is basically lines and flats.
By the way, this arrangement that Oscar is using here is used in many, many people's portfolios. It's not like we're stealing it from Oscar specifically. This is just a known template. And we're showing you kind of some of the missing components in yours. Like you're giving us front shots of most of the characters, no back views of the fronts, and no fronts of the back views. So we kind of want to see both, and we want to see the portraits and more design explorations, right? So pages set up, when we're talking about stealing the layout, this is what we're talking about. Like, look at the amount of work and designs Oscar has here for each character, and you want to showcase that for your characters as well.
So yours is really like this. This would be the version of yours that you're doing. And you've got a couple of these. Okay, so give us twice as many of those. And then give us some other variations. Maybe
just the drawings.
Yeah, just drawings. Maybe it's his winter outfits. Maybe it's his lounge outfits. We want a back view in here somewhere. If they have significant or unique items that they carry, let's have that. Let's have a front and side view of the head. And let's have, this line up here too. And that would constitute that character, right? It would be those pages combined.
Also note the difference when you put the lineup together of the characters. Let them vary in size and body type. Let the bigger masculine characters, the tougher characters, more confident characters be taller. Just so it communicates. Let the nerdy characters be a little bit shorter. So I'm not saying that a nerd can't be tall, okay, or whatever. But this is a matter of leaning into the archetypes and creating a balanced cast of characters. And let them be different.
I've not looked at all these. I was just curious how they kind of carried this out.
Oh, yeah, this is great.
Yeah, exactly. This is wonderful, good high render version of the final of the character. Again, front and side view, explorations of costume variations, creating the final lines, back view, lines and flats again, and then I guess they did a 3D model of it.
No, that was a project I think they all did together.
Okay, cool. So going forwards, that would be a suggestion, is just use some of these things from New Edge as your sort of template. Focus primarily on just what you're doing here. And if you're doing characters, I would recommend that you keep to human characters rather than the kind of alien thing that you have on the other one.
Oh, and also working from briefs.
Yes.
So it's a lot easier, and it's more like the real thing, like the real job, if you're creating characters for a brief. I know we say this a lot. People are probably sick of hearing us say it, but we're going to keep saying it.
Because that's the job.
Because that's the job, and it really helps people a lot when they do it. So, again, go to the website, grab the portfolio kit. If you don't want to pay for the kit, there's a ton of free briefs in the Discord.
Yep.
So just go into the Discord, and if you don't know where they are, post, and people will tell you where they are.
Yep. Okay, that's all for Ricardo. Hopefully you find that helpful going forwards. And we'll run to the next one.
Yeah, who is next?
We've got Jacob. Jacob says, self-taught artist from Poland. Dream main career is working with Magic or Magic-adjacent clients. Been having some success with smaller TTRPG games, album covers, but really haven't been able to kind of make way up to a higher level. Okay. So, yeah. We looked at this earlier. There's some really positive reads from this stuff. Okay? There are some really nice stuff here. We love some of the subjects you're doing. I feel like you know the kind of stuff you're doing, RPG, fantasy games, sort of things. Cool. Stick with that. Now, that said, about everything...
Jacob is here. He's about to have a heart attack.
Oh, no, man. No, we're here to help you out.
Don't stroke out. It's okay.
No. We want to be as helpful. So, most things, starting with Minotaur and older, I would turn off. We'll tell you a couple of the exceptions. Because your skills have just simply improved, and they end up bringing down the overall quality level of the portfolio. And we want to stick with, like, what are your 10 or 12 best pieces. Mm-hmm. Now, that doesn't mean that somewhere you don't have some of your older works listed just for posterity's sake. But for your main portfolio where you're sending clients to look at your stuff online, top 10 or 12.
It's quality over quantity.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Now, let's say that we turn off everything starting with Minotaur and older, except I think there's merit to this one. We'll look at some adjustments to that, but I think there's some value in that if we can adjust it. And I think this one has some nice elements to it as well. I like that
one too.
But a lot of this other stuff, it's not the same style you do anymore. What you're doing now has more nuance to it. And I would just turn that off. Okay. Now with these, there isn't a single thing that you're doing rendering wise that is keeping your work from a higher level. You're to the point where it starts being a little more case by case basis as to what to do. That said, one of the consistent things across all of the pieces, let's just open one up here and I'll see if I can tax my computer by having it do this. You obviously are doing this, I believe, in Procreate because I think it records the process. If I'm mistaken, Procreate. Oh, yeah. Okay. And one of the issues is that you are designing, lighting, rendering, coloring, all at the same time.
And composing.
And composing the scene. And this is limiting... It's limiting what you can get out of the image because you're splitting your attention across too many important elements of the image all at the same time. And if you were to tackle these more individually, like figure out your line work and then figure out your lighting in values, and then figure out your colors. If you divided these steps up, I think you can ultimately get more out of all of the images, because you could put all of your focus just to making the best lines possible. And then you do the best value scheme possible. And then the best color scheme possible. The best character design possible. That's what we try to get our students to do in the fantasy class, is we break it up step by step so that they don't try to do everything all at the same time. You are getting some good results, but you're not getting as good of results as you could if you did it the other way.
Well, if you were able to, okay, your drawing ability is really great, by the way.
Yes.
Like, your drawings are awesome. It's just right here we should stop, right? Before we went in color. And you should have maybe tried sketching it from a different angle, placing the camera somewhere else, possibly. Or you could just duplicate the drawing a couple of times and try different lightings, just in grays, flat grays, to see how you're going to light it so that you could pick the best lighting possible. But it looks like you're not giving yourself a chance to do that, because as soon as those lines are resolved, you start throwing in colors, values, and lighting all at the same time. And so you're, at this point, you don't have the ability to try different lighting situations, because you'd have to repaint the whole thing every time you want to change the lighting. So same thing going on basically on all of them.
So what we're talking about is a process change. Here, unfortunately, you had several better options for the overall poses, and we ended up...
Oh yeah, that was awesome.
That one is in every way superior, because the issue with this is that now we've got this guy swinging a sword and his hands are right against his chest. And that means that his arms and the sword and his hands are all stuck within the silhouette shape of his body. Here, this one is superior because as a silhouette, I can still make out what's happening in the pose.
It's also cool that you, in this one, that shot is right after he's just cut the guy in half. So right after the impact has happened, that's when you want, it's either right before or right after, right? And right after is good because you can see the impact of what happened. So that scene was really powerful. And then I don't know why you chose to draw him differently, but it doesn't feel as effective.
Let me pull up a reference. A lot of people are probably familiar with this because it was in an old How to Draw comics. I'm trying to look around my webcam here. Here. This was How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way. And this is what we're talking about. When you have an action taking place, swinging a sword or throwing a punch, these are the best poses, or these are the best poses. It's the wind up, which is all of the twist and the energy is being pulled, or it's the follow through. Again, we're getting a great bend here. What we have is essentially your swing is here. He's not prepping the swing, and he's not all the way through the swing. He's in the middle of the swing, which is just that. So that's where that would get more. And because we spent so much time doing that, we didn't really have enough time left over to work out the value scheme. You immediately jump to colors, immediately start rendering faces and little lighting stuff. And as a result, it doesn't work at a small read because everything is either white or black. It's like 90% on the black side or 1 to 10% on the white side. And we've lost midtones. Okay.
Yeah, I wanted to show some, do you have maybe a link to that person's portfolio where they had some of those thumbnails done, like lighting thumbnails and composition thumbnails that I showed you from Runeterra. Or maybe you've got some of those just around. Do you want me to...
I've got Runeterra concepts.
Yeah, like the composition comps, not
Just
the...
a second. Got like those.
That's not really what I'm talking about. Yeah, that right there. Okay. If it would open, that would be great.
Computer?
Okay,
There we go.
There we go.
So this is where I suggest more time being spent. Make sure you're figuring out what the overall lighting and value setup is.
Kind of the same thing we said to Kyle, right? Is
Yeah.
spending more time here, figuring out that stuff, giving yourself at least a chance to consider different options, because right now you're basically stuck with whichever one you commit to one, and then if you get so far in the painting with colors and rendering that then in order to change the lighting scheme, that's a lot of repainting you have to do. And that's why here, when people are putting together scenes professionally with, complex lighting, they spend more time figuring this out before starting to render things, because if you need to make a change still here, this is already more advanced. It's not what we're talking about.
You want that?
Yeah. If you need to change stuff here, that's not hours and hours of rendering. So you can change that, you can pick different options. So we're telling you this because this is one of the things that's holding your pieces back, is that you're not fully working out your lighting and your plane separation before you commit to rendering everything.
Yep. The other thing that they're doing with these is that they are keeping each asset, like each character or the tarp for the tent or the mountain, and it's on its own layer, so that they can modify things individually, add lights or shadows or overall adjustments up and down, and they're not having to reselect things and they're not having to repaint the whole area. So yeah, it's more of a process thing here. Okay, I've got...
If anyone has any questions they want to ask in the chat, go ahead too. We can take those as we go.
Okay, so I did a paint over of one of the pieces. Oh, and this one. Yeah. Okay.
Uh-oh. I thought it was going to crash.
Photoshop will probably crash at some point. Be aware. Okay, so this piece is... It's well done. I will say that it's well done. It's painted well. It's completely understandable what I'm looking at. I do like that there is some dynamic posing here. It feels like this could be a scene from a real fight. Right?
Yeah,
okay.
the posing is very good.
The castle in the background is well handled, that there is enough detail and information that I feel like it needs that, but not so much that I feel like it's over-rendered. So overall, there's a nice balance here. But overall, it's just kind of meh, because everything just sort of fits into this sandy gray tone, and it's all kind of sitting in the midtones. And if we look at the black and white, it just all sorts of runs together.
That's because we're getting, again, the same value ranges in the front, in the back,
Yeah.
everywhere. Yeah.
So if we were to focus on just the lighting and the color and try to push it further, we could get something like this. Now this has a lot more energy to it. It's got a lot more color to it. I would think that most clients would be more keen on getting more visual punch with it.
This is not fully resolved, by the way.
No.
This is a quick block in. There's still many hours of actually painting on top of that. But this is just to give you a general direction on how to separate some of these things out.
So just walk through this very quickly. It is just trying to boost up some value, toning the background to a different tone than the foreground. We want them to feel warm. They want that to be cool, so there's better separation. Mocking in some other color, getting some more blue tones back there, getting a little pure tone on here. And now they have pure darks, right? Putting some shadow on them, letting that direct sunlight on the metal just wash out. It's so bright. Letting them fade off a little bit, adding some of the sky colors, bounce colors in the metal. Yep. Okay. So this is kind of what we need to push things in the direction. Stronger value separation, stronger color separation, and overall it adds to the sort of impact. Now here I can get this smaller and I can still make out those characters a little better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we might even need it to figure out a way to separate that.
Mm-hmm. You know, right now a lot of that's running together.
Mm-hmm.
So, question. When you say to study composition, what is the process you use to study said composition? Copying it one-to-one comes to mind, but I'm curious what specific things do you focus on? Yeah, copying one-to-one is one of the weakest ways to practice composition. Because what we'll end up doing is just copying.
Yeah, you're just limited to whatever's established in the image you're copying from.
So with composition, you can do one of the things that Diana's actually been doing recently, watching videos on cinematography, camera angles, visual storytelling
and
for
not just
films, movies.
Here's different angles. There are some videos that you can watch on YouTube. There's whole channels about this.
Yeah.
And they will tell you, because I'm trying to get myself to do better camera angles and with more purpose. So they'll tell you which ones are good for these types of characters, which ones are good for weak characters, which ones are good for energetic scenes, which ones are good for heroes or villains. And there's just camera angles that are better suited for those things. So that's one way to study it. Looking at movies, watching a movie that has good cinematography and seeing, okay, what is the distance from the subject in each shot? Why? What's the impact? How would that look in a scene that I'm trying to do? And there are certain scenes where it doesn't make sense to be too far away from the subject. You have to get in closer. And there's other scenes where you need to get a little further away to get everything in the scene, right? So that's something that you can do to study, is just be mindful when you're watching a movie. Don't just mindlessly watch the movie. Like, take some notes or even pause it, take some screenshots if you come across a really good composition for a scene about two characters fighting or two characters talking or a character going on an adventure, you know, and getting screenshots, taking those into Photoshop, analyzing them, breaking down the lighting, seeing how they're lit, how the lighting is being used to give you that feeling.
Yeah.
Right? Where are the lights? And then you can start to note that and bring that into your scenes, right? So this is something I'm actually studying now. I'm going to bring a little bit of that into my new class. Not sure when that class is going to be done, but I'm going to bring a little bit of that in, but you can study it on your own in that way.
A good way to practice is putting all that into effect. So it is giving yourself a scene. Maybe it's hero confronts a dragon. Whatever it is, right? Just give yourself some scene. And then do 10 different compositions of ways of conveying that scene. So is the foreground character right next to the camera? Are we looking over their shoulder? Maybe that's one way. Maybe another way is we're looking down. Maybe we try a variation where we're seeing it more from the dragon's point of view.
Yeah, and the guy looks really small and weak, right?
Yeah.
So there's different ways you can think about it. Just give yourself like one descriptor or scene or one brief, and then think about where can I put the camera? And one thing that Marshall Vandruff mentioned in one of his old perspective videos is what he would do sometimes, or I don't know if he still does this, but he would draw the scene, the layout of the scene, orthographically from overhead. So like a blueprint, and say, oh, here's the dragon, here's the guy, here's a couple of mountains, here's the river or whatever, here's the cliff, and just position them on a piece of paper, draw them overhead or on Photoshop, and then figure out where you want to put your camera. And when you figure out where you want to put your camera, figure out, do I want to tilt it up or tilt it down, low angle or high angle, right? And then you can start to sketch out what that might look like, right? So anyway, think about it in those terms. You can put your camera in different spots, and then once you have a couple of drawings, then think about, where am I going to put my lights now? And only do it in grays. Don't render, don't shade it or smooth it out, just flat grays. And this is hard work. This is hard. Okay, it's not easy, and it's not doodling. But this is where you actually gain an understanding of this.
Okay, I also had this one. This is the Baba Yaga character from folklore. And I feel like this is... it's quite well done. Like, the character's got a nice amount of, like, accoutrements. The eyes covered, like, blood or something coming out of her mouth. So the character's got a great vibe kind of going on. We got this low angle that's sort of dynamic. We've got this hand coming out of the pot. All right. So the whole thing is working together well there, but it's not really jiving with the environment, because everything here says dark and creepy. And
it's like you're trying to get that green light out, but it's hard to do that in like a day scene, right?
Yeah, and back here, this is just like an autumn day, sunny but kind of cloudy day. We got some warm light hitting the tops of the trees. So why don't we push it? I feel like that's what this kind of needs, is to be pushed more to twilight, so that the green light becomes stronger. Then also, I don't know exactly what your idea or the client's idea was for this version of Baba Yaga, but it feels to me that the character is too spry. That she's very upright.
She's pretty fit.
Yeah. Where generally this character is like ancient, right? And you getting more hunched shoulders, the head's down lower, and more
witchy.
Old and curled over. So I did some edits. I'm not saying this is perfect, and I'm not saying that this is exactly your vision, but I'm just wanting to give some idea of, like, okay, we're trying to lean her over more, right? And there's a limitation how much I could do without actually just painting the image. And getting that arm up higher to make it feel like she's kind of hanging on the staff more. And then, okay, we're establishing a little bit more of a night sky. Getting some glow from the pot. Getting some shadow on her so that we can get more glow from this. All right. Get some moonlight across the tops of them. All right. So we get something maybe like that. This still needs like dozens of hours to actually implement. But as a quick paint over, this gets the environment and the overall lighting and colors to key into the moody kind of witchy aspect of the character.
Yeah, the feeling of it.
Yeah. Okay, we're an hour and a half in. We got to keep going, but doing some really solid work. But hopefully there was something in there that help you do some more stuff.
And we want to release more material on lighting, because it always comes up and people always struggle with it. But we're just trying to knock out some of our older classes first, get them recorded onto the website before we get into that.
So Jacob is the next review. Lucas, sorry. And we've got. Did we look at that one? Here.
Yeah, that's Lucas.
Okay.
Is Lucas here? Lucas, are you here? Let us know.
Name's Lucas. Finished art college many years ago, but never worked professionally. I worry it might be too late for me now. Despite that, I would love to try to get my foot in the door. I'm interested in environment concept art for games and movies. I like to illustrate too. I feel like my portfolio is a bit generic or boring. I would very much appreciate any advice I could get. Okay. There we go. So, Lucas, I don't know when you graduated. I don't know how old you are. But the work is competitive. And you are doing something that most artists can't or won't do.
He's here. Hi, Lucas.
Hey.
Yeah,
cool.
Your work is really, really good. Like, really good.
So most artists won't slow down and actually develop specifically what things look like, and you do that. And you obviously have a thorough understanding of perspective, and you have an excellent understanding of like architecture, overall design
and
itself.
And the proportions of everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Come on. This is lovely. This is some high-level concept for a scene. It feels very well handled. Everything is resolved. There's good architecture. I think that this has a place in the industry. These are also really nice. All right. So everybody watching, like, this is super useful in the industry. Not just massive vistas.
Or keyframes.
Yeah.
This is way more useful than that sort of stuff.
There is more of this that needs to be done than big scale keyframes. Mm-hmm. So you're just literally going in, defining everything about these little buildings. They feel consistent. They feel like they have cool shapes. They feel like it's a place that I'd want to explore if I was playing a game. I don't know what it would take for you to find work, how long it would take you to, but you should seriously consider trying to spend some time getting some work. I think there is increasingly less people coming into the market that have the skill and interest to do what you do.
I've even seen, not many, but even a couple of the guys who were already established keyframe artists now trying to learn how to do this to add it to their portfolio. So you're doing things that are needed, and you're already focusing on those things, on the right things, and you're at a good level.
Okay, a couple of other things to keep in mind. One is if you are doing environment concepts, which I think that is what you should stick with. It's obviously your forte. Mm-hmm. If you have not already started learning 3D, I would suggest it because it is quickly becoming an almost non-negotiable for that subject.
Yeah.
Now, you can still probably do a lot of stuff by hand.
And it's great that you can do that, because
yes.
a lot of people can't. But in addition to this, there is an expectation of a certain level of fidelity that is really only achievable with 3D.
And they would love it if you could pass off some of your quick models to maybe the 3D modelers who would then take it and do all the fleshing out of the stuff. Now, this is a smaller thing, and I'm not saying that this is a problem, but it is something to be aware of, okay? Because it looks like you're doing almost all, if not all, of the perspective by hand, it lends the drawing and the design to using the same kind of shapes and angles everywhere. for all of the locations. So all of these make use of either 90 or 45 degree angles or perfect semicircles, right? And that's a little problematic because it gives it a certain kind of look. Mm-hmm. And it's the sort of look that they're used to seeing in older concept art because everything was done by hand, and it's far easier to do that than doing like a 32 degree angle on stuff or symmetrical curved surfaces. Mm-hmm. But that's something that you probably want to start incorporating on some new pieces, and that's why 3D would be more useful as a base, because some of that stuff is just wicked hard to do by hand.
Yeah, it's just really hard to get it right.
So, because right now, like, everything is just starting to have that same blocky, angled, beveled, edged look. Okay. Now, this is lovely. I did pull this into Photoshop. Okay. This is a lovely scene, and you've got some others that are kind of along this line of like the little country house. Any moment now. Now we've got some other ones down here. Very nice. Mm-hmm. But I do want to suggest that you don't need to do a full value study of this. Instead, consider just doing flat colors with a multiply shadow layer at 30%.
Yeah, maybe show them an example of what that looks like.
We got...
So a lot of times nowadays, in the current market, when people see a little house like this, they're going to think of some of these over here.
This would be the same sort of thing, and that's what they're doing here. They're doing flat colors with a shadow multiply layer that controls basically the shadows for everything, and you can quickly change that and
just
add that.
Black at like 30% or whatever level you want, but don't go over like 45 and be too dark.
I'm trying to find one that shows process.
Oh, that one there. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is it, right? We have. I think you can make that a little bigger for me.
Oh,
no.
Look what you did. Yeah.
So we get our lines, we put our flats in, obviously very quick to do. This is just a multiply layer, and then did one other little pass to do some touch-ups, highlights, and inclusion shadows.
Yeah. Little texture, but not too dark on the texture.
Yep. So using that method, you can get to a fairly high amount of realism fairly quickly. And I think doing these kind of dioramas also very useful. You don't need to worry about doing entire scenes. You're just focusing on showcasing that particular building location. For this particular one, if you're going to do a full illustration of it and you're wanting to show like the entire thing finished, then we need to punch up the lighting and the colors on this. The way to think about this lighting arrangement for this scene is that you want to balance your lights and your colors to account for the majority. What I mean by that is most of this building is in shadow. Therefore, we want to expose the camera for the shadow and not for the light.
That means you want to have a wider range of value and color in your shadow areas and not in your lit areas. So you can, try that out on your phone camera when you're taking a photo. If you tap on the light, it'll expose for the light. If you tap on the shadows part of the object, it'll expose for the shadow. And what we want to do is, on this piece, we want to see more of what's in the shadows because almost everything is in the shadows, right? The majority of the image is there. So we want to get more color, more resolution on that part.
I'm trying to see another one. Like on this piece, this is exposed for the lights so that we have more of the value range and the color is available in the area, in the lit area. This, everything is kind of lost detail in the shadows because it's more compressed. I saw somebody mention it this way. Nope, that's not what I'm trying to do. Oh, it's just lagging a little bit and it's making it eat some of my inputs. Also not what I'm trying to do.
All right.
Okay. So we have the full value range here, and what you're basically doing is having to decide how much of which part of the value range you're accounting or allotting for the shadow versus the light. Right now, the lit area goes from white to mid-darks. So you're getting about this much of it and saying anything that is in the light, oh, this is lagging so hard. Anything that's in the light can use any of this. Anything that's in the shadow is allowed to use any of that. But this is backwards because most of the scene is in shadow. So what you want to do is the inverse of that. Instead, you should say anything that's in shadow gets all of this, and then anything that's in the light only gets the end part. And it's like, okay, well, that's going to be blown out. Well, that's fine because it's only like 5% of the building. It's okay if it gets blown out. Now, what that kind of looks like, let's look at some examples. It's like this. There's lit areas, but most of this is actually in shadow. So the areas that are being lit are overexposed. But the areas in the shadow have a nice balance of lights and darks and, beautiful colors.
They're very colorful. Yeah.
We've got this one. Same thing here. This is very close to what we're talking about on yours. Lit areas, overexposed. Shadow areas, beautiful midtones. Mm-hmm. Okay, so if we kind of apply that here, then we need to be able to pop out the building, so I put that back there. And then we brighten up the building, and then we add some extra color overlay. That's the kind of difference here. Because we're really getting to showcase the building. I'm saying that this is a direction that still needs work to really pull that off, okay? But you can see that once I turn that off, it looks so much duller. It's like grayed out. We don't have great form. We don't have great color. If it was mine, I'd push it even further than this. I would get even more true color to it.
Yeah, it's still a bit gray. Like, there's only so much we could do with adjustment layers and painting over when you have that much gray already baked into it. And this is why we kind of showed you the other process, is when you're laying in the scene and you're laying in the colors, it's hard to come back from laying in that much gray. You might want to just get your lines clean. I know you can do clean lines because you have it all over your portfolio. And then lay in the pure colors and just add the shadow pass with the multiply. Or in this case, since this is exposed for shadow, you might want to add your pure colors and then use a screen layer to blow out the lit areas, right?
So a quick question there. Hi there. Is there still space for me to submit your work, my work, or will you do another review later? Well, we're not taking any more for this stream. This stream's about to wrap up, but if you submit it in, we'll probably do it next week.
Yeah.
I believe there's 3 more for next week.
There's some for next week, but I don't think it's full yet.
We may end up skipping a week if there's not enough for next week. But yeah, it would be very soon. We're continuing as long as there's more to look at. Okay. So, Lucas, I really want to encourage you that you have excellent skills. Mm-hmm. It doesn't look like you shy away from the work of doing this work. Like a lot of people, they want to do environment design, but it's clear that they don't like to research. They don't like to be specific.
They don't want to work out the perspective.
Yeah.
We do recommend, again, like, I promise I'm not shilling the kit just to get your $50. Like, again, if you want to get free briefs, they're in the Discord as well. There's free ones, but we did make better ones, newer ones in the kit that have a full range of environments, from like fantasy to sci-fi, different things like that. So interiors and exteriors, I think it would be good for you to try working from some briefs, getting some new stuff into your portfolio. You clearly have the skills.
Yep. Yep. You have very marketable skills. I have not looked for work doing environment design recently. I don't know how many posts and availability there are out there.
Recently, yeah.
But I would think that if you spent a while, sending out your work, especially if maybe you made a couple of new pieces, that somebody would be very interested. Yeah. Okay, we got one more to take a look at here. Right, I think this was number 5. Yeah, we got the last one. Is Karin. Okay, so Karin said, okay. Took a while to gather up the courage to submit. Well, we're trying to be nice here, but you coming up with the courage hopefully is, gives other people courage too. So instead of telling you where I want to go with my art, I'd like to ask you where you think it's heading. What client or types of work should I aim for? I need higher paying clients than I have right now. Yeah, I understand that. Where do you think my strengths and weaknesses are? And is there a particular area I should focus on? Especially since I like doing characters, items, and maps equally, and I can't bring myself to drop one of them. Okay. When you are thinking about your career, and there's really 3 things that you need. You need a goal, you need the right skills for that goal, and you need the right images to market to the clients at that goal. If you don't have one of those, you're not going to make it anywhere. Now, I get what you're saying with where do you think my work is headed, but I do want to mention for larger audience that this is generally a backwards way of thinking about it. What most people do is they put together a series of pieces that were just kind of random personal pieces. And then they go, okay, who wants to buy it? All right. And then they look around for a client who might want to hire them based on that. What you should do is go find a client or group of, genre, a group of clients, and say, what do they want? And then I'm going to create pieces to market to them. And the same way that if you're going to go fishing, just regular fishing, you figure out what that kind of fish likes, and you use that as bait. You don't just, I'm going to put a peanut butter sandwich on the end of my hook, and then I'm going to see what it catches. Right? We got to figure out what they want first, and then we offer that to them.
This doesn't mean do things you don't like or do things just because the client wants them. It means it's kind of both. Like, it has to be a client that you are interested in, a client that wants things that you would like to make, right?
It's the overlap of the two.
Yeah.
Now, fortunately here, what you like doing and what clients want, there's good overlap. People want characters, people want items / props, and I don't know how big of a market there is for maps, but that is something clients will pay for.
There is a market. Yeah.
So then the issue becomes not who the goal is or who the client is, although you might want to have specific ones in mind, because what you then need to do is figure out what is the the standard for that subject matter that those higher clients are looking for. So if you go, if it's maps, all right, who is producing the highest level maps? Who are their clients? And what does it look like? Same thing with characters. I'm doing characters for RPG games or, TTRPG. All right, who's paying for that?
And I know
what do they look like?
I know you're saying here that your ultimate goal is MTG, and you say that you're nowhere near that level. Well, that doesn't mean don't aim for MTG. Like, you need to be constantly trying to push higher to that level, because that's how you're going to get closer to that. So, keep trying to reach that. With every piece you do, keep pushing closer to that, because then you will eventually get there.
All right, this is where I do recommend, again, pare it down to the top 12 or 15 pieces. We're just getting a lot, and it would be better to have fewer pieces at higher quality than more quantity at the same level. Because if the first 10 don't sell the client, or even the first 8, then having more of the same thing isn't going to make any difference.
Yeah, those top 2 rows are really important.
Now, there is an artist, Barold.
It's Francesca.
Yeah. She does work with a lot of big companies like Blizzard, right? To do maps of their sort of places. So we say, you want to do maps? Cool. This is what the industry wants when you talk fantasy map.
Yeah, it's not enough just to have the map brush pack that has all the trees and the mountains on it. I know that's fun to play with, but when you're trying to really dazzle the client, what we're thinking about is, this is a good starting point. You could take this map and now say, how can I push it further? Yeah. How could I make it more interesting and unique? Like, instead of having just tentacles, can I see the actual creature? Mm-hmm. Because what you want to do is delight the audience. Pull up one of Francesca's again. I want to show. Imagine if you were a kid and you opened this, opened a book and this map was in it. This would be delightful. Like, look at all these little things, these little boats, these little mythological creatures. Every little castle, and there's this tree, all these like unique things that make you interested in exploring it, right? So this is what your maps are kind of missing right now. If this is something you want to develop, we kind of just need more points of interest, more uniqueness, a more handmade touch to it. Yeah, something like this too. It's really going above and beyond, right?
So this is great to do to work out the actual layout, make sure that the map is correct to the client and their IP, but then we need to go back and just hand draw everything, and we need unique things. The mountains need to be unique to this map. The cities need to have a unique design for each city. The ship needs to be an actual drawing of a ship. This needs to be a custom design that's,
got some cultural elements from that culture, whatever that might be.
It's infusing more uniqueness and hand-drawn elements to each map. It's adding all those extra things, like here's a close-up of one of the towns. There's, main characters, maybe deities from the game or the property
or
down
heroes.
Here. Yeah. Maybe you show, like this, crests of the major houses or countries from the game. And all of this is going to just round out kind of the experience of the map. So overall, that's the sort of approach that we would need to see with all of your subjects. That you're doing the thing, but you're doing the simple form of the thing. And we've got to find another level. We've got to find another level of rendering, of development, of kind of passion, another level of how much time you're willing to put in order to get more out of each aspect of the image. Same thing goes for these. These are fine, but they're not memorable. And like for this particular one, it's unclear like who this character is. And I know it's for a client, and this may be exactly what they asked for, but from my view of it, I don't know, is she a merchant, a princess, a handmaid? I don't know who this character is. There isn't enough visual tales to let me know. I also don't get why there's a stone gargoyle, because it seems like the culture and location that would have this would not be the same one that would create this costume. So that those don't feel like they cross each other. And each time something like this comes up is one notch of more development that the character needs. Or there is the opportunity of development. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what do you see with this?
Yeah,
one?
I've got the same thing kind of going on. I just don't want to be overly negative to Karin. The portraits that you do are very good portraits. Yep. The faces look nice, features are right. Like, there's a lot of good things happening here. The content, the ideas are solid. But now it's kind of like Clint said, we got to take it a little bit further. I think this is a chemist. I'm not 100% sure. There's not enough clear visual indicators to tell me who this character actually is. Is she a doctor, maybe? An alchemist? I'm not seeing enough things indicating that. We're getting very, very, very simple design, right? The most simple apron that you could come up with. Very simple hairstyle that also doesn't tell me anything. Very simple bag. The books in the back are very, very simple. I don't know if they're old, they're new, there's no scrolls. There's no other furniture in the room to tell me anything. So this is, if you want to develop, this is the way we have to develop. Mm-hmm. We need something. Does she have any tools or anything strapped to her arms? Or the arms are just bare, it's just plain, there's nothing there. So we need some indications here of who the character is, what exactly are they doing. Really want to make that clear, that's important. Another thing just to think about is if you're going to do a creature, it really has to be understandable what it is. And I can't even tell what that is. I think it's some kind of reptile, but it's very hard to tell. So this is what we're talking about, developing things further. I think you did a paint over, right, of one piece?
Yeah, I did a quick little draw over of one.
Explain what we're talking about.
So I do want to say that one of the consistent things across multiple characters is that the costumes are particularly without natural fold. And that's something that could quickly add a lot of extra quality to the image. Yeah. Is that this is not a natural cloth pattern and the fold pattern. But that's something that could easily, quickly be referenced and would add quite a bit. There's other things like we've got to get in the mindset more of a character designer, and maybe a character design class could be very useful that focuses on just what design is, how to get more out of the design of the costume. Like here, if she's a chemist, I'm thinking she probably has her hair up. I'm thinking you probably don't have long hair dangling around you while you're working with chemicals. It's a small thing, but when you show that you've kind of thought through the process and you're incorporating this level of design into each and every element, it collectively adds together to make a larger difference.
Yeah, like having some spectacles around her neck would tell us that she's concerned with precision, with seeing small things. Yeah. So, indicators like that, I think, like Twin said, a character design class would probably really help.
Okay, so here, I didn't do a full paint over. I just want to note some things here. Let me move that over. Okay. So here, again, this is clear what we're looking at.
Mm-hmm.
But this is kind of base level costume in particular. That we've got to find a more unique version of the same thing, a more interesting version of the same thing. So, like, this is a character holding a staff, some sort of magic user, but we've got more, designed things in it. We've got more textures in it. There's more interesting cloth fold patterns.
Materials.
Yeah. So, the staff is more fully designed. This is a very simple staff. Okay, so something like that. Also, unless the client's really asking for a background, just stick with a blank background.
Well, the client may have asked
Yeah.
for it. But if you have the choice,
Yeah. So fully developed. Okay, so for this, I think here we really need the face a bit smaller. Because right now, the face is too large compared to the size of the head itself. Either we need to add a significant amount more head, but I think the easiest solution is we just need to scale the face down a little bit so that it...
There's room for the forehead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You would have to think about that and figure out how you want to do it. So here's some ideas if we were to develop this more, the face, but okay, if she's got this kind of overcoat, then and it's winter, then let's go ahead and make it have a bigger collar to it.
Fluffier fur.
Fluffier fur. Give it a hood so that she can cover her head with it. Make the sleeves and the openings be bigger. Nice big, fur lined like you have it, but twice as big on the opening so that it has a bigger, drapier, fun shape to it. The staff is more designed. It's more developed. Instead of one simple little thin edge to it, maybe it's 2 or 3 times as fat. Maybe it has design work on that edging piece.
It has embroidery all the way down.
Yeah. Instead of just one simple strap, could there be an adjustment somewhere on the strap?
Yeah, like a latch or a hoop.
Yeah. Then, since this is a focal point, could we do more with it? Could it have a taller neck to it? Could there be like a silver stopper at the top with like a latch to hold it down? Could it be a screw top? Maybe it even could be a little bigger. Maybe it has a leather strap on it that's looped around her wrist so that she can't absolutely drop it or something like that, right? We're just trying to find ways to make it more visually interesting. And these sorts of things are good to see. All right?
Yeah, these are lovely. Very, very well painted. Great skin tones. Very good.
I would suggest continuing to offer character portraits. Do try to give some other... I would say that fantasy races is probably going to be a good option. Like, do like a tiefling, do an elf, some of those options, because that's probably going to be pretty popular. And I would say keep doing some of this too.
Yeah, these are great too.
Yeah.
I would continue to work on the render of these, trying to make them a little bit more three-dimensional, focusing on rendering the volume of each object as a whole object before you get into the little details.
Yep.
So the form rendering, think about that. But these are great to see. These are always useful for RPG properties.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, that was the main feedback there. I'm trying to think if there's anything else.
Does anyone have any questions, any comments? Let us know.
I know that we went long today, but
because of the Paintovers.
yeah, we just looked at a lot of Paintovers. We're not necessarily going to do that every time. It just depends what our schedule is, but we did it today.
So there's a delay on the video and chat, so we'll wait and see if anyone has any comments or questions before we wrap up for today.
Okay. We will have I'm just filling a moment here. We will have fall classes announced soon. What the lineup will be if you're wanting to get into a fall class that has the live feedback. Otherwise, all of the self-study courses are already available. You can pick those up anytime, but you don't get feedback with those. Always nice to listen to these. Y'all are a wealth of knowledge. When's the book out?
The book, if you want a book, just take any class, because like the slides are 200 pages for most of those classes. So it's like you get a book every time you take a class. We overdo the slides a bit.
Yeah, we will have the character illustration class. Will be one of them.
It's going to be so good.
And that will focus on doing standalone character, full-length characters over white backgrounds, sort of thing you do for Dungeons and Dragons, Pathfinder, and it will focus mainly on the illustration side of it. It won't focus very much on character design because we've already got a full other class about character design. So we'll go over that stuff.
Yeah. I'm still working on my new course. It's going to be an illustration course and a little bit more developed in a slightly different direction than our fantasy illustration course, but we're going to cover a lot of new ground, different kinds of lighting, more storytelling. So I don't know exactly when that one's going to be ready. I'm going to try to have it ready for fall, but I'm so overwhelmed with commitments that I don't know if it's going to happen, if I'm going to make the deadline. I'm going to try. If I don't make it for the fall release, then it'll come out before the end of the year for self-study, and I'll offer feedback in the new year. So just keep an eye out for that if you want to take another full scene illustration course. If you already took the fantasy one, we're going to have another one coming out.
Yeah. Well, we'll probably do a full announcement video that I'll post on the channel when the schedule has been figured out. That's one thing that we have to do is figure out who's offering which class on which day so that we don't double up. And we've got some guest teachers that are going to be offering class as well, so we got to check with them.
Yes.
Yeah, Frank, of course you can ask us a question. Feel free.
So let me just see. There was another question. You mentioned the goals have a really big importance. I happen to feel I lack direction. Any advice on that?
You mentioned that goals have really big importance, and I feel like I mean, okay. Literally, that's why we created the kit. If you don't have that, I do think that is going to be the fullest version of the answer.
Well,
but
it's more a custom answer because it's hard for us to answer something like that without knowing a bunch of things about you, right?
Yeah. The main thing there is you need to determine some clients or projects that your work is going to be fit for, and not just like one. If you can only find one client or one project that your work fits to, that's probably too narrow. You're not going to be able to make a living at that. Now, if you said, I just want to do TTRPGs like this, I can do props, I can do portraits, I can do standalone characters, I can do maps. That's enough subjects that you can probably have enough companies.
Yeah.
So you're saying I'm aiming for Paizo, Pathfinder, D&D, Ghostfire. Yeah, that's fine. Or you need to say, like, I'm going to do I'm going to do mystery art, any kind of Call of Cthulhu sort of stuff.
Clue stuff, murder mystery,
yeah,
investigation.
You know what kind of style you're going to do, because you need to create a portfolio where all of the images are geared towards that goal. The more that a portfolio is scattershot, you've got one thing that's sci-fi, one thing that's fantasy, one thing that's an ink drawing, one thing that's painted, the less effective that portfolio is going to be.
Olivia, if you lost your slides because of your computer crash, just send me a DM and I'll give them to you again. I've got them. I've still got them. Okay, who did I miss here? Definitely want to take another class. We miss you guys. You guys, like, there's so many of our old timers here. I don't want to call them old timers because they're not old people. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but they're just from like our first couple of terms, or people that have been with us since we started the school, and we haven't seen you guys in a while. It'd be nice to see you again, see how your skills have leveled up. Igor's asking if there are multi-payment options. We've talked about this. We haven't looked into it yet.
Not okay. The answer would be not currently. There are some hoops that I would have to jump through on the back end of the site, and agreements and bank setups with various services, third-party services. In order to make that happen, it's not built into the Wix site. In the future, that probably will be something, but it's not something that is planned to release immediately.
Yeah, we haven't had the time to just start that process, and it's not that easy for us to just turn that on. But we want to do it. We've talked about it.
Yeah.
Okay, so Frank says, I'm getting some opportunities to work on smaller TCGs. Sometimes seems they are expecting to pay 100 USD per illustration, so when you say anything above 300, it's a tough situation. Kyle is experiencing similar things. Yeah, this happens when you're at that level, when those are the clients that you're attracting. Until you push to a higher quality level, you're gonna get those clients, and they are not great clients to have, but we've all had them. Or most of us have had them, at one point or another when we're starting out. So I feel your pain, and we really want to work on helping our students more and get them into better paying situations. We're working on that. I can't say too much about it, but just 2025 is going to be a big year for us, I feel, and we're going to move in that direction.
A note on that for everybody is that at the beginning, almost everybody has to take those kinds of projects because it's the only ones that you can pick up. That said, you have to over-deliver if you want to get higher clients. So you go, they're only paying me $100, so I'm going to only put 10 hours into it. Okay, well, I get that. You don't want to work for less than $10 an hour. I don't blame you. However, your 10 hours on that project is not going to get an image of high enough quality to secure you a higher level client. So either on that client piece, you need to put 40 hours into it, even though they're paying you $100, but you're not doing it for the $100. You're doing it because you know you're going to use that image to pitch to a higher client. Or you need to do a personal piece where you quadruple, quintuple the amount of hours that you're used to doing, again, in order to get that higher client.
That's what I used to do. On my low-paying client pieces, I didn't put that much effort because I also didn't want to get them used to getting a high level of quality for cheap from me. So I just put in the hours that they were paying for. I gave them a good enough quality level. But then on my personal pieces, I would put in way more effort, way more time. And then on my portfolio, I just wouldn't put any of those lower client pieces because I just didn't want them to drag my portfolio down.
Yeah.
And you can still put on your resume and say, yeah, I worked with these clients, but then on your actual portfolio, when people go there, they only see strong images. Doesn't matter if they're all personal pieces.
Mm-hmm.
If they're the strong ones, then that's what you want to put there.
The other thing with that, if you're used to putting 10 or 15 hours into a commission, do realize that if you move up in client, you're going to move up in hours. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like this. It's saying, well, I'm only making $100. So I'm only going to put 10 hours into it. Okay. Well, when you get a $500 commission, be ready to put 50 hours into it. You're still going to make the same amount of money per hour. All right. Because it's still $10 an hour, but you're doing 5 times the amount of hours because that's the level they expect for that client. So you need to be willing to put that much time into anyway. I'm not saying that you're not. I don't know the situation. But just keep that in mind as you're approaching it.
Yeah.
You have to secure less number of projects to make the same amount of money, which is good.
All right. Any other questions, guys? Let us know. If not, then we will go back to work. I got commissions to do, and they are not going to paint themselves, unfortunately. And Clint has coursework to do. Yeah,
people apparently want to take this illustration with the characters, and that's not finished yet.
No, it's not. So you should get on that then.
On form drawing, I'm still recording form drawing, and I'm trying to get that out.
It's a lot of work.
Yeah. Okay, I think that's probably good for today, guys. We will continue next week as long as there is enough portfolios on the Discord. And if you've enjoyed this episode, maybe this is your first episode, there are 8 others of this particular series on the channel. There is about 50 of the old ones back before.
Oh, yeah, there's a lot before me.
Yeah.
Just Clint solo.
You're welcome to check those out as well. All righty, buddy.
Thanks for coming. We appreciate you being here and being active in the chat. It makes it more fun for us, too.
Oh, I thought you were saying something else.
No,
okay.
That's it.
All right, thanks, everybody. We'll catch you next week. Take care.